Hey guys, welcome to the third video, and in this video we will create two endpoints, getCanvas and updateCell. The getCanvas endpoint will return the current version of the canvas, and the updateCell endpoint will let you update a cell in the canvas. In this video we will also build a periodic job and which will populate the database. And so we will run this periodic job at midnight every day, so you guys have a new canvas to paint every day. I'm gonna do the periodic job part first for this tutorial. So, and we will use Hangfire to do the periodic jobs. You can use some of the package if you want to, but for now we will use Hangfire. We will need to install two NuGet packages, which will be hangfire.asp.netco and hangfire memory storage. Hangfire memory storage is used to store the data required by your periodic jobs. This storage doesn't persist data, so if you restart your project, then all the data that is generated in the first run would be deleted. If you want to persist data, then you may want to use a SQL database for this, but we don't really require it to persist data, so we're just going to use memory storage. So let's hop into our Visual Studios and install these packages. And let's go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Packages for Solution, and search for this. Click on the first one. I've already installed this. Have I installed the other one as well? Okay. Okay, so I have installed both these packages. I installed them before I started recording my screen. So now what we will do is we will create a folder in our solution. So click on Canvas API, right click on it, click on Add, and click on New Folder. And we're gonna call it Periodic Job. Periodic jobs, click enter, and inside this we will create a class. So add class, and we're gonna call it periodic canvas job .cs. Save it, and we will call a method from this class to run periodically. So, and we will use dependency injection for this. So we need to create an interface for this class first. So let's create an interface. So we'll make it public interface, and then we'll call it same name as the class. And then, so interface only contains a signature for the methods. So we only need to say public void and the name of the method. I'm going to call it create new canvas, and that's it. So that's our interface for this class. Now we need to implement this interface on this class. So to implement it, we will write colon and then the name of the interface. Then we will construct a private variable, and we'll call it app of type app database, and then I'm just going to call it context, and a private int field which will be size, and its value is going to be 32. So 32 is the size of our canvas, so it's 32 by 32. Then we'll create a constructor for this class, and then we will accept app database, and we'll accept an instance of the database class that we created before over here. So we will accept an instance of this. I'm just going to call it context, and then I'm going to set the private variable equals to the variable that we get. And we're using dependency injection right now. So ASP.NET Core automatically would inject this instance of app database to the constructor, and then we are setting this variable over here equal to the value that we get. Then we will create the function, the method over here. So let's copy this bit, let's paste it here, public. So so this is the method that we will be calling repeatedly. So first we need to create a matrix that will be a canvas, and this will be of type color data, and this will be of size 32 by 32. So we're just going to use the size property that we created over here, then a semicolon. Then we will run a double for loop to populate this matrix array. So for int equals to 0, smaller than size and I++, and then same thing for the inner for loop. And then matrix size times I plus j. So this is equal to this. Let me just put parentheses, and we will set it equal to new color data instance of this class. And over here we will specify the row index, which will be I, and a column index. Needs to be a comma over here, column index, and this will be j, and the hex value. So the default hex value will be just a white color, so just that, and semicolon over here. So notice that we are not modifying the color data ID field over here, because it's a primary key and we are not allowed to modify that field when we store this matrix to the database. Now we need to add this matrix to the canvas table. So to do that, we will type in context, which represents our database class dot canvas. This is the canvas table, and then we'll add something to that. Then we'll add a new instance of canvas, and then we'll pass it color, and we'll pass color data our matrix that we just created. So over here we created an array of color data of size 32 by 32, and now we are passing matrix to the canvas. And in the end, we just need to save changes. So we just need to say context.save changes, and this will update our database on Azure. Now we need to go back to our startup.cs file, and we need to configure Hangfire. So over here, first we need to add Hangfire as a service. Services.add Hangfire, and then we'll do config dot use memory storage. To this will specify that which memory storage we're using. So we're using the NuGet package that we just installed, and then we will say services dot add Hangfire server, and this will add the Hangfire server as a service. And then in the end, we need to say services dot add scoped, and we need to pass in I periodic job, the interface that we just created, and periodic jobs. What this will do is this will prep our periodic jobs class for dependency injection. so we don't have to create an instance of this class when we want to call this method over here. Then in the configure method over here, we will type I periodic jobs, and we want an instance of periodic jobs. Okay, and then over here we need to make a recursive job, and I will also add a GUI for hangfire. So to do that, we will do app.use hangfire dashboard. This will display a similar GUI to us as Swagger does, and then we need to create a recursive job. So recurring job dot add or update, and then we just need to specify ID over here. So I'm just gonna call it 1 for now, and then a lambda expression. This will just call our method that we created in the periodic canvas jobs. Dot create canvas. Just make sure that the method you want to call from here also is in the interface. If it doesn't, then you wouldn't be able to call this method from here. And then for now, I'm just gonna call crons dot minutely. So this will run this method in every minute, and then I just need to define the time zone. There will be time zone info dot find system time zone by ID, and just need to define the New Zealand time zone over here. So let me just search up what's the time zone ID for New Zealand. So NZ time zone ID. So let me just copy this, and let's go back to our project and paste it in here. Okay, let me just do some formatting so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, and let's save it and let's run our project. Okay, so it just ran up Swagger for us. Let's let it load. Oh no, so here, we have an error. Was not found on local computer. I have spaces in there. I just need to fix that. Can't have spaces in here, so save that and run it again. Hopefully this will run this time. Let's give it a second. Awesome, so it's working. And to access the hangfire dashboard, what we will do is we'll type in localhost /hangfire. This will open the hangfire dashboard for us. If you look at the top, you will see we have one recurring job. So if you click on it, and you can see this is our recurring job. And it was executed a few seconds ago. So if you go in jobs, and you can see there's one job in process, and then soon it will be succeeded over here. Just give it some time. Okay, so it has been successfully done. Now if we go back to our Azure and write a query over here, so let's say select everything from canvas table and press run, you'll see there's an entry over here. So there's one entry, and then if we go to color data table, and you'll see there are lots of entries over here. So in total there would be 32 by 32 entries on this table. So our recursive job is working. And if you go back to recursive, you can see the next execution is in a few minutes. You can just see the exact time when it's going to run over here. Now I'm just gonna close this. And then you can be more specific when you want to run your job. So instead of saying crons.minutely, you have other options. So crons.hourly, or I think it's cron dot. So you have all these options: so hourly, minutely, monthly, and so on. We also have cron expressions, so you can type in an expression, so like this, and you can learn more about this expression on Wikipedia. So if you search for cron and let's open this Wikipedia page, there is a lot of information about this cron's expression over here. So as it says, the first star represents minutes, the second one represents hours, the third one represents days, and so on. So have a read of this article to make yourself familiar with cron's expression. And yeah, but that is it for the recursive job. And then now we'll make some controllers. Controller. So let me just first delete these two. So I'm just going to delete this one and this bit over here. Okay, let's go back to our browser and let's see which endpoints we are making. So we're making two endpoints: get canvas and update cell. Okay, let's go back to our code and we'll create a file over here and we'll call it canvas controller. So click on add, click on class, and then over here go on ASP, and there should be a controller. So, okay, controller class empty, and then we're gonna call it canvas controller, and click on add. This will add a controller to our controllers folder. Then we'll make changes to this file. Okay, so the first controller we will create is get canvas, but first we need to get a hold of the database context. So we will first create a public app database field, and we'll call it context, just like before. And then the second one will be just want to make it private, and then private not that, private int size, and that's gonna be 32. And then I'm gonna make a constructor for this class, canvas controller, and this will accept a instance of our database class. And then I'm going to set the instance variable equal to the variable we get from dependency injection. And now we're ready to create our first endpoint. So that's going to be a HTTP GET, so that's a GET endpoint. Then we need to define the route for this endpoint, and that will be get canvas. And now we will call it get canvas. So this endpoint will return a string. So that string will be a JSON serialized 2D array. So first we'll create the 2D array that we will return. So it's going to be string output. I'm just going to call it output for now, and the new string. And now we need to define the size. So 32 size by size. Size. So that means that our 2D array is of 32 by 32. So 32 rows and 32 columns. And then we will create a variable called canvas. And then we will use the database context that we get from dependency injection, and then we will do .canvas to access the canvas table, and then we will do .include, and then we'll write a lambda expression, and we will include the color table, that is the color color entries, the entries in the color data table that is related to this canvas. Then we will order this by descending order based on the canvas ID. And then we will pick the first one. And what this canvas variable will store is, this will store the first row in the latest canvas, the latest row in the canvas table. So this represents one row in the canvas table, the latest one to be precise. And then we will make another variable and we'll call it color data, and we'll set it equal to canvas dot color data. So we're getting the color data of this canvas, and then we will order it by row first. Row index, and then we will order it by column index. Okay, so that's done. And then in the end, we will convert this to an array. So to array, and then we just need a semicolon. Now this color data variable contains the color data that is related to the latest canvas, and they are ordered. So first by rows and then by column. Okay, now we will write a double for loop. Smaller than size, just like before. A plus plus. And then for int j equals 0, j is smaller than size. Then j plus plus. Then we will set the array that we created at the top. So we will say output ij, not that, output ij equals to color data, and then we will say size times I plus j. Output. So now we are storing the data in output array, which is a 2D array. Now in the end, all we need to do is return this array and serialize this. So for that, we will write in JSON convert dot serialize object, and we'll pass in our array to that output. And we have an error over here. I just need to do .hex over here because we're accessing the hex value of this row in color data, and then just save it. Let's run our application. And now we should be able to run this endpoint because we already created an entry in the database. Okay, so we have one endpoint over here. Let's try it out. Okay, as you can see, it's working. So it is returning a 2D array, and it's JSON serialized. Awesome. So that's it for the first endpoint. And now let's make the second endpoint. The second endpoint is a put endpoint. So it's a put because we are updating something in the database. So it's going to be HTTP put, and then we need to define the route for this endpoint. That will be route, and then I'll call it update cell. And then public. This will be an async function. The reason that this is an async function is because when we save the changes from this function, we will override the save changes async function in the app.database file, and we are making use of async functionality over there. So that's why it needs to be async. You'll understand why it needs to be async when you do the historical part in the API. And then just gonna be iAction result, and then update cell. That's the name of the method. And from body. And then we also need to create a model for the data that we will receive from the front end. So for now, I'm just going to call it that. And now let's create this model. So over here, just outside the class, but inside the namespace, we will create another class. And this will contain 3 properties. So prop, int, and there will be row. Let me just double check if it's row, if it's a capital R. So row prop, the second will be column, and the last one will be a string, which will be the hex value. And just want to make this one required, because we do need some hex value to update the database. And we need to import something. Data annotation, yep, so that's done. And then over here, we need to just update the cell, so in this method. Okay, so let's get a hold of the row from the color data first. So just gonna call it table row, and then we'll make use of the context class, which is the app database class over here. We are storing that in a context variable. So context.canvas, and same as before, we are doing .include to include the color data that is related to this canvas. And then we are ordering it, descending, and then c.canvas ID, and then first, and then we're picking the first one, so the latest canvas. And then we're accessing the color data of this canvas. And then we're picking the first row which satisfies this expression. So the expression is going to be row this is a lambda expression, so row dot row index equal to data that we receive from the front end. So this one over here. So data dot row and row dot column index equal to data dot column. And now we need to update this row with the hex value that we get from the front end. So that will be table row dot hex equals to data dot hex. And now we need to just save changes to the database, because this is the async function. We're making use of the await keyword, and then we will do save changes async. And then we're just returning no content over here. no content, and that is it. Okay, we have an error over here. Let's see what it is. Inconsistent. Okay. Why do we have an error over here? Okay. We shouldn't have an error. We need to say this class is public. So that should fix the issue. Yep, so that's fixed. Now let's save it and run our application. Now we will have two endpoints on the Swagger UI. So let's see if both of them are working. So let's first check get canvas. And as you can see, it's working. And now let's update a cell. So let's say row 0, column 0, and I'm gonna change to black. See, so it's success, and let's call this again. So as you can see, the first row and the first column cell has been updated to 0, 0, 0, 0. So yeah, so both of the endpoints are working. So that's it for this video. Sweet, laters.